Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market here with a 3,000 subscriber milestone celebration. And what better way to celebrate 3,000 subscribers than doing a good old-fashioned audit? Before we get into that audit, though, I'd like to thank everyone for being a finance fanatic and subscribing to the Rogue Market. I am blown away by the support. I didn't think that I'd hit 3,000 this quickly. We just hit 2,000 not too long ago. Speaking of the 2,000 subscriber challenge, we have been having the biggest headache possible with Echo MTG and making that contest work. I think we might be onto a solution. My whole plans for that, you can go back to a few other videos a month ago or so when we hit the 2,000 subscribers, and we did a competition for picking $2,000 worth of cards, a portfolio, a fantasy finance portfolio. And I wanted to show weekly updates with that. However, the exporting the list that people sent, so people were signing up for Echo MTG, then they were making a $2,000 portfolio, then sending us the file, and then our idea was to upload that file into one user account that can then check on the different binders being a specific user, and then being able to track the daily growth or the daily loss of those portfolios. However, there is major hiccups and bugs within re-uploading that file. So we're still months later and hairs pulled later trying to figure out how to feasibly do this. We've used other sites that we can manually import all of the files and then upload, but then the pricing's off. Like it basically devalued everyone's, because I believe that Echo MTG uses TCG mid, the one that we found uses TCG low, and you can tell there's just a big headache with that whole thing. So I'd like to apologize for that. We're looking for a solution. I haven't forgot about it. I have the Battle Bond booster box that's for the prize sitting underneath me right now that we are going to send off to the winner. And hopefully because the winner is going to be proclaimed on June 1st, hopefully we can get that done and start giving updates on that. But just thought I'd give a little bit of update. But 3,000 subs now. I don't really have a competition for this one. Maybe we'll do one at 4,000 or 5,000. However, I did want to do an audit of my favorite video series since we started this channel, called the Rogue Roundup. So the Rogue Roundup is a weekly episode. I'll be having one on Thursday of 5 cards, one from each format: Pauper, Legacy, Modern, Standard, and Commander, each week of cards that I think are going to go up. And it's been my favorite video to produce. They are more highly edited videos. They do take a lot of time to produce, and a lot of thought goes into those videos. So I'm quite proud of how they've turned out. So I'm going to actually audit the Rogue Roundup today, and I'm going to do the first 10 cards that we did on the channel. So the first 10 Commander cards. So we're up to, I believe, Rogue Roundup number 14 will be released on Thursday. So we've had 13 before this. The last 3 are pretty new, so I'm just going to take the first 10 that went from September to March, I believe. Yes, there's been some. I think there was like a whole month where I didn't do anything on the Rogue Market channel, where I got busy with stuff. However, it's been revitalized, and the subscriber growth and view growth has been substantial in this past month. So let's look at the first 10 Commander cards that I picked for the Rogue Roundup and see how they are doing today. So the first one that was picked was Helm of the Host from Dominaria back in September. So back then, I gave it an A+ rating for speccing into this target. The current price at the time was $2.50. You didn't really have a problem finding them at $2. I need to do an explanation video on how this actually works. I still get a lot of negative comments, and it's basically daily when I load up Rogue Roundup. Have to delete some snooty comments because of people saying, you know, that this is the stupidest thing ever. Oh yeah, buy it at 2, and then it doubles up and buy list it back at 2. Well, if you're buy listing 100% of the time, you're doing MTG Finance wrong. There are other ways. I like to say that the Rogue Roundup, the Rogue Market / even the Market Mondays and Rogue Deck Builder is more about managing a collection. And you have to really utilize every outlet that is available for doing so. So there's outlets like CardSphere, there is Buy List, there's TCG Player, there's eBay, there's trading, which is so underutilized in this day and age. One of the ways that I was able to recuperate from a stolen collection, I lost about $8,000 worth of cards. Story for another day, I've told it before, is basically on trading after that. It was cards like Hellrider that I got in at 50 cents, and I didn't buy list them. I found actually people to trade them for, and was actually able to establish a bunch of collections. I had a friend that traded his standard deck all the way up to, I believe, up to a Mox Pearl and a Tabernacle. Within a year is what he ended up with it. So trading should be utilized, and that's what we're really going for, is finding the best bang for your buck and finding deals, as well as being able to sell at higher rates. And buy list is definitely an option you should be looking for, because there are times that buy list, as you'll see in tomorrow's market or Rogue Roundup, there's basically right now what we call an opportunity for arbitrage, where you can buy something for lower than it buy lists. And that's kind of the opportunities that I only use buy listing, is when I need to get rid of a card and it definitely has made its money back in the spec. So anyway, we'll get over that another time. I think I need to teach people. I need to be more clear, and that's my fault for not being clear exactly how the finance world works. And even for me, people like me that have an outlet for selling a card, we definitely do have a bigger advantage over most people, as we do have the opportunity to sell things at TCG mid, no problem. But for some people, of course, that outlet's not there. So anyway, let's get on to this list. This was Helm of the Host, an A+ rating of the target price of $2 back in September, and the current price of it was $2.50. Was not seen playing Modern, but I gave it a 2 thumbs up, 2 arrows up for Commander. If you look over here, this set rarity symbol is basically saying that it's got a negative indicator, meaning that there's a lot of supply for rares out of Dominaria, still feel that way, and we've got rid of these other factors lately because the images were quite... they're pretty useless, in my opinion, because I usually talk about the replaceability, the reprintability, or how unique it was, and we've replaced it with new icons here in the Rogue Roundup. So we've evolved a little bit for the Rogue Roundup. All right, so where is Helm of the Host today? Helm of the Host is currently going for about $4.85 with a buy list of $2.50 on Card Kingdom, a channel fireable at 3. And it'd be interesting to see if there's a buy list that's higher than either of them. So definitely was a pretty good little spec there. Yeah, that's kind of the issue with buy lists. If you did get it at $2, you've only made a 50-cent increase on that, or a $1 increase for using Channel Fireball. However, if you are going down the route of trading these cards, you've basically doubled up your money for Helm of the Host. It's easy to find someone on Card Kingdom paying, I would say, between 85 and 90% for Helm of the Hosts, and this card is becoming rarer and rarer and rarer. I still think it's a really good spec, even at this price point, but it absolutely was a better spec when we called it back in September at its low. So if you actually look, the lowest price was around that $2.30. We look back at September, October, September, right around here, it was the low. So it was the perfect time we called for Helm of the Host, and I think that one definitely is a win for the first pick of Helm of the Host. Let's go on to the second pick that we picked, was Sunbirds Invocation. Sunbirds Invocation at the time was climbing. I had an expected growth rate of it rising. I give it an A+ rating with a current price of 2, a target price of $1, and once again 2 thumbs up for the Commander. Look at it today, and it's flat. So here's one where we haven't been the greatest on this particular pick. It's still around about the $1.40, so it's actually gone down from its highest price. So what happened with this one? I still like this one a lot for getting in around that $1 mark. If you did get in on the $1 when I said to get in on the $1, the reason why I put it at this target price is I was having no problems having this fulfilled on either my own buy list that I do personally or using CardSphere. People were sending me the card at $1, no problem. And I still think that's probably the rate that you can get Sunbirds Invocation. So this card still sees a lot of play in Commander. It's still one of the most played cards out of Ixalan, and I do like it long term. I think where this started to go down is it was seeing a play in a standard deck at the time period, and it's just been outclassed by cards like Expansion to Explosion that's come out that's done a better job of what Sunbirds Invocation does for those big spells, casting, chaining through a lot of spells in Standard. However, long term, I still like this card. I think it finally has flatlined out. We're seeing Ixalan cards across the board start to go up in value. The set will be going down to its low, but that's mainly going to be in cards that are rotating out for standard play like Carnage Tyrant. But we are seeing a lot of movement in Commander cards already for like Revel Enrich is a good example. Revel Enrich has increased quite substantially for the EDH format, mainly because it saw play in Tesa. And I think the Sunbirds Invocation is going to be one of those cards that it sees. What I like about it most is if you check EDH Rec, it doesn't just slot into one specific commander deck. It seems like every red commander that comes out, it's one of the best card drawing engines, or it is card advantage engines for the format. So I think a year, 2 years down the road, this is going to be a really, really good spec if you got into $1. I wouldn't give it the A+ rating that I give it today. It's probably down to a B or a B-. Where what I mean by those different ratings is if you're in an A or A+, you should be pulling the trigger on that card as soon as like you should be parking as much. That means it outclasses basically every other spec in Magic. If you're down to the B, you can probably find A's, but it's still something you should definitely be aware of and looking to park some money in. And even C is where I draw the line of what I call investable. So if you see the ratings on future Rogue Roundups, you'll kind of know the different ratings of those. So I would definitely dumb down Sunbird's Invocation to probably a B- or a C+ right now. And it is, one that didn't pay off, but it's still not a bad target, or not a bad card, even if you got in on the dollar. All right, on to the next one. This one was, for the third episode, was the Gyre Reach Sanitarium. I gave this a B. I definitely changed the rating now to an A++++. The growth rate was steady/flat at the time period, and I believe this was in October, and I gave the expected growth as a rising. So difference between rising and spiking, of course, is spiking, you see the spikes, risings, you see that just nice trajectory. The current price is $1, the target price is 0.75, so I was quite aggressive on it with a 75% spread on that. Didn't see any real play in Modern, but saw a ton of play in Commander. And I gave the set rarity a neutral. I'd actually upgrade the set rarity from everything out of Eldritch Moon to a positive, because the supply of Eldritch Moon actually seems to be the lowest of any of the sets of that time period, because it A, did not have a masterpiece run in it, and B, it also had the shortest time in Standard before it rotated, so it just has the shortest supply naturally. So where is Gyre Reach Sanitarium today? Gyre Reach Sanitarium is a $2.50 card. The buy list spread is still very, very low. Looks like Card Kingdom still sells them for $1.79. Let's see if that's still the case. Yep, still seems like they are the lowest in the business, which, again, this is why I always keep this isn't Star City Games, excuse me, Card Kingdom. This is why I always keep Card Kingdom in my daily sites that I check for card prices, because oftentimes they are the cheapest. Let me repeat that. Oftentimes Card Kingdom is the cheapest. Now, for most cards, Card Kingdom is above and beyond the most expensive by far. We're talking sometimes twice as much as the next vendor. But oftentimes they slip through on cards like this. This is a huge discrepancy between TCG Player. The market price is about 75 cents more than Card Kingdom. I still like this as a buy from Card Kingdom for $1.80. Let's see how much this is a good way to kind of check their inventory to see how much they're willing to buy of the Sanitarium, and it's up to 185 copies they're willing to buy. So that means they're actively purchasing these cards pretty aggressively, and only paying 45 cents though, so that's probably why people aren't sending them. As this increases, I don't know what the threshold of this becomes. If it hits over 200 is when they increase their price. Usually they increase their price based upon how many they're selling. So it's just going to take a few more sales for this to bump up from $1.79 to $2. Then I think it will go up to about 65 cents for the buy list, and you can see that the trajectory will go up pretty quickly from there. So still like this card. We got in at one of the lower points of this card, and I expect this trajectory to continue because it is still one of the most played cards it is the most played card from Eldritch Moon in EDH, and there's actually some good ones. And how I was able to make this particular pick is I compared it with some of the other cards, like Imprisoned by the Moon. And Imprisoned by the Moon was actually more expensive than Gyre Reach Sanitarium at the time. And so there's a discrepancy between play. They're both were basically solely Commander cards. This one had a little bit more demand from decks like Modern occasionally play it. So you can kind of compare apples and apples at that point. And a card like the Sanitarium that saw 2,000 more copies than a card like Imprisoned by the Moon, should cost more. However, Imprisoned by the Moon, for whatever reason, was costing more at the time, and so something had to give at that point. So I knew that this card was about to go up in value. I still think this is a pretty good card to invest in, even at its $2.50. I would be very surprised by the end of the year if this isn't a $3 or at least a $4 card. I would say it's probably pushing $5 unless it sees a reprint. Alrighty, so on to the fourth Rogue Roundup. For Commander, we picked Ophidian Eye. So Ophidian Eye was a 10-cent pick, bulk bin. I identified that the foils went through the roof for Niv Mizzet, or Niv, the one out of Guilds of Ravnica, and it was the most played Commander out of Guilds of Ravnica. So I just knew that more and more people were going to pick up that, and the Ophidian Eye eventually would. The demand would outstretch the supply. Where is it today? Well, kind of got lucky here. The audit happened later rather than sooner, because the Ophidian Eye is now up to $1.25. Let's see what the buy list prices are. It looks like you can get out of it for 33 cents, so it'd triple up if you got it at 10 cents. I don't suggest that. I, of course, suggest trying to find buyers at this point. And the TCG market price is actually above the TCG mid, so that actually means there's more movement. It means mid needs to be caught up. Usually when this happens, it means that there's a lot of one-of copies that people can't even purchase, and it's holding the mid down. So there might be a lot of 35-cent cards, one-ofs, that let's just go check that, and I'll show you exactly what I mean by this card, and we can probably tell why the Ophidian Eye is being kept down for that mid price. So you can see there is some one-ofs. Yep, see these two-ofs, 17 cents. Even though this is heavily played, this does factor in. There's a 45-cent one, which is 4 of, so again, that puts it under the threshold. You can't actually complete this cart right now, because that'd put you at under $2. It doesn't include the shipping, and TCG players would be say, hey, find some more cards from Anime Imports before you can buy this. Looks like the same thing with the North Valley Games. It's a cart you cannot complete, and also with this dollar card you cannot complete. This dollar card you cannot complete. So already in page number 2, still can't complete a card. So here's the first cart that we can complete, is this MTG The Marketing at $1.59 plus 99-cent shipping. That is the first cart that can be complete, so that is why there's the discrepancy between the TCG mid and the TCG market. The mid is still keeping a bunch of these in effect, these 17-cent cards that cannot be completed, and saying, hey, that the mid, the average price of the card is X, even though the average card cannot be purchased at X. So that is also something you should be looking for, is when the TCG market price is above the mid, that means the card is actually moving. So this card is more likely around the $1.50 mark. Card Kingdom at $1.29. It looks like they're pretty aggressive with the 35-cent buy or 33-cent buy for this card. And it looks like the supply is getting quite low. So if you did pick these up in your bulk bins, or you did find them for 10 cents, you should have a pretty decent cash out for them. I do suggest moving them at the dollar. Anytime a common gets around this point, it probably is smart to start moving these. Looks like there's a lot of them actually that are selling on eBay for decent rates. Never been a fan of eBay, because a lot of times he's killed on the fees, but it definitely is something that can be lucrative at times. All right, so on to the fifth Rogue Roundup. We picked Detection Tower from M19, a target price of 35 cents, a current price of 75 cents, with a flat growth, a B+ rating, and a steady expected growth. So I saw a decent amount of play in Commander. Let's see where the Detection Tower is today. So the Detection Tower is up to $1, which is higher than what it was. Which is quite nice. It looks like Card Kingdom is increased theirs to $1.50 with a buy list of 60 cents. So that's a lot more aggressive on the buy list price. Anything under $2 a lot of times has about a fourth to an eighth of what the going price is what Card Kingdom buys them for. So they're more aggressive on this one, and it must mean they need a lot of copies. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're actually wanting over 200 copies of this. And it looks like 138. So that's pretty aggressive with the card. Actually, yep, 60 cents and 78 cents for credit. So the reason why I like Detection Tower was it was just a utility land that makes your opponents lose hexproof. And there was an Arcane Lighthouse, I believe is the card, that had a much higher price tag than the Detection Tower. And this was just one that just seemed like a very, very duh card to get into. The reason that I gave it a target price of 35 cents is that I had no problem finding these cards on TCG Low for 35 cents and bought quite a substantial amount of copies myself for around that 35-cent mark. So it's a pretty decent pick. I don't suggest selling it out yet. I think you should actually wait a year, before you sell this card, unless you are worried that this is a potential Commander target for Commander 2019 that will come out in August. If this is not included in Commander 2019, then this could be another good pickup at that dollar mark for the detection tower, if you could even get in on that price. So this is a pretty good one for us. Let's go on to the next one. We picked World Shaper. I think we're now in about the start of the year here for World Shaper. So at a target price of 50 cents, the current price is around $1. It was rising at that time period. I gave it an A rating, and there were a lot of Lord Windgrace decks that were adding to the demand of the World Shaper. So if we go over to World Shaper and see what it's at today, it's up to about $1.88 with Card Kingdom at a $2.79. So you can see the discrepancy between the two. Paying $1.40 for the buy list. So if you would have got in on the World Shaper at the 50-cent mark, you can sell out at $1.40. That's a decent little return for very little labor just going through Card Kingdom. And I think that's where I was actually picking these up for under value at the time, was from Card Kingdom. Again, a lot of times Card Kingdom can be the lowest when it's in standard cards. There was one time period where, what was the card I was buying? It was 25 cents on, I think it was Tocatli Honor Guard. Tocatli Honor Guard was 25 cents on Card Kingdom and is $1 on TCG Player. And so there was a huge price discrepancy. And when I finally purchased them all for Card Kingdom, and then they upped their buy list, it was funny because I could have just rinsed and repeated with Card Kingdom using their own algorithm against them, or their own automation against them. That's a story for another day. We're going to have to actually explore that sometime. But you can also see with this card that the market price is above the TCG mid, which means there's movement. And Card Kingdom is going to be very aggressive with this buy list of being 50% of the price. So usually when a card is 50% of the price, Card Kingdom is very bullish on that card. All right, so let's go on to the next one. This is getting around February, I believe. It's Xenagos God of Revels. Xenagos God of Revels was an A++++ rating because I remember at this point, the buy list, I believe, did equal the current price, or pretty close to it. It was very, very razor thin between that spread. This card saw play in Modern, Commander, and the supply was very, very low. So let's look at Xenagos. Xenagos is now about $16.50. Card Kingdom at $20. Card Kingdom paying $11 for the card. And if we look at the market price and mid are spot on with each other, which means that mid should be a little bit higher than with market price. So in the coming days. So it does mean that this probably will go up slightly in the next few weeks. So Xenagos, yep, pretty decent time to get in on that card. You can actually make your money's worth just slightly if you did go the buy list route. But this would be a perfect example of why I would look to actually offload this someplace else than a buy list, because you'll get more bang for your buck. Even after fees with the $16.50, if you're losing 15% on fees and shipping, depending on how you can do the shipping, if you can get away with throwing in a stamp, you can definitely make probably around that point $12.50 to $13, maybe even up to $14 after all is said and done, using other outlets like CardSphere. So pretty sure this card will continue to go up. The only thing that's going to stop it from going up is a reprint. It's going to be hard to print cards that will kick this out of its slot. There were some good cards out of even Ravnica Allegiance, the commander that allowed you to cast cards, creature cards, like doubled your mana, but you can only spend that on creature cards. Worked very well with a card like Xenagos. So, and then it's a fun little tooth and nail type strategy that runs in Modern. Sees at least one of plays in those. Still a very, very good card, I think, even at this $16.50 to even spec in. This would not be a bad time to get in on Xenagos. But of course, $10 is a lot more lucrative than a 65% increase. All right, so now we're getting quite recently, but I think that all these on this list are March, are pre-April. So let's go to the next one, which was Omniscience. Omniscience had a target price of $4.50 with a current price of $6. The rating was an A. The current growth rate was flat, meaning that it had been going down, but then flattened out. From Core Set M19, I put the supply of a negative factor, but I'd actually give this a positive, because I even think of all the printings, I think this is the third printing for Omniscience. I think it was in 2 core sets before this. We'll check in a second. Is still pretty positive for a Mythic. There's not the highest supply of this particular card. So Omniscience now is about $7.50. That's a pretty aggressive little increase recently. So I like that. right before War of the Spark, it's starting to increase that trajectory, at least the angle of it. And Card Kingdom has a buy list of $4.50, so that's pretty good. That's almost right at where our target price was at the time. This one just needs a little more room to grow. Now we're getting pretty recently. I mean, 2 months ago is still very, very recent. When we called this spec. Still like it at this price point. Again, if you can find deals on this card around the below $5, I think this is a good time to get in on it. This is the first time now we're seeing where the trajectory is actually increasing rather than flat, which is a good sign for this card. The mid is a little bit higher than the TC market price. The buy list spread is above 50%, which is typical for a commander card mythic for Card Kingdom. All right, so now we are on to the last two. This one was Ancient Tomb. Ancient Tomb I gave a B. I gave it steady. It was flat. Its current price was 21. Its target price was 16. And this one I think is one of the few ones that really hasn't done anything. So it actually has gone up. 21 was the price, so it was probably back here. This was right after Ultimate Masters came out. And the market price, though, is still around 22. So this one really hasn't moved much. The buy list price hasn't moved much. I still like this card a lot. It just goes to show how much supply was out of Ultimate Masters. There are some cards that are starting to move in Ultimate Masters, but across the board, Ultimate Masters still is staying pretty flat. Very, very flat. So, yeah, so right after its initial increase after it dipped, it's still the exact same price. So a little bit of humble brag here. The first drama that happened with the Rogue Roundup channel was the why I don't think you should be investing in Ultimate Masters. A, the sealed product. B, the singles. Because the supply was just too high. Had a lot of naysayers in the comment section calling me all sorts of names about stuff. And it feels good to be proven right every now and again. I'm not I'm just as susceptible as anyone else to the feel-goods after been proven right. But my main whole argument, people were misrepresenting to begin with. I was telling people not to buy Ultimate Masters at over, the $400 or $500 that it was pre-selling for, because it was just absolutely ridiculous to get in on that price, as the cards would just tumble in value. And that was also the same time when a lot of these mythics were incredibly expensive, where people were still claiming that Liliana would hold its value, that Karn would hold its value, and these cards did get crushed. The mythics were able to hold their value the best, whereas the rares, I think it was the Back to Basics was the one that I really told people to get out of, and that's where people, and this is the card that is still continuing to fall. So Ultimate Masters, I think that's the biggest problem with Ancient Tomb, is it's still recent enough, there's still a lot of supply. I think people were holding on stubbornly to the price. We call it price memory, where you remember a card being a certain value, and so it's like, oh, I'm not going to sell this card because I feel like it's more expensive than it's going. And it takes a long time to kind of break the stubbornness of that price. And you can see overall it still seems to be as many downs as ups for cards moving, which means this set still hasn't found its bottom. I would start to say, though, that we're coming to the point where Ultimate Master has found its bottom. I've started to invest in a few cards here on this low end, and this is where Card Kingdom really comes into play. Like Conflagrate and Mistveiled Plains, I believe, are quarter cards over, so you can buy them for a quarter at Card Kingdom. So let's look at Conflagrate here. If we come over to Card Kingdom, let's go back over to Card Kingdom and look at Conflagrate and see where it's at. So that's the buy list for Conflagrate. So let's get out of the buy list for it. And we have a 25 cents. Yep, you can pick these up for 25 cents from Card Kingdom. So it's a lot cheaper, about a 33 or 66% cheaper from getting them from Card Kingdom. So it just goes to show the supply of these cards. This is why I show this card. It's a heavily played card in Modern, in Dredge. It's usually a 3 of or a 4 of in most of the Dredge decks. So this is just showing the supply of Ultimate Masters is very, very high. However, I have started to pick some of these cards out. We have seen some movements in some of the more EDH cards, like the Thespian Stages and the Buried Alives. Those bottomed out and have definitely started to recover. And we're actually starting to see some of the Mythics recover as well. So I'll have to do an update video on Ultimate Masters, but it has stayed stagnant for quite a while, and that's exactly where I thought it would go. And that's why I haven't picked many of the cards from Ultimate Masters. And when I got the flack for saying that I would invest in Iconic Masters or Masters 25 over Ultimate Masters, and I got a lot of pushback for saying that, I just want to say I knew what I was talking about at that point. I just knew the supply was just so much greater from this set. So a card being contained in Ultimate Masters was actually a negative factor comparatively to Iconic Masters or Masters 25. Alrighty, so now we're on to the last one, which wasn't too long ago. This is Rise of the Dark Realms. Rise of the Dark Realms was a $15 card at the time that I wanted to give the target price for $15. You could find them. The reason why I called this one is the buy list. There was no spread. So I believe Card Kingdom was paying $14 for Rise of the Dark Realms, and you could find them for about $15 after shipping on TCG Player. And so I gave this an A++++ with it was rising, and I expected it to spike soon because there was less than a page on TCG Player at prices that were near the buy list of Card Kingdom. All right, so what happened here? We picked it about end of March, and it did spike up right after I said. I'm starting to wonder if I'm having a self-fulfilling prophecy, though. Like, when I started this channel, I didn't ever think that I'd be able to control the market or to influence the market whatsoever. But now I'm starting to second-guess that. I'm starting to think that maybe I do have a bit of control or a bit of a influence on the market. So, well, let me give you some perspective now. I personally am not speccing as much as I'd like to. I mean, we're talking very, very little per week. The main reason is we're definitely trying to free up capital here at Gone Rogue Games. We are trying to remodel and trying to make some investments. Want to pick up another editing computer. We want to pick up another 3D printer. We want to get some inventory in for the summer season, and so we don't have to scramble for the Christmas season. So we have a lot of this. This is all reasons for us not being able to really invest the way I like to invest. And so it's not me personally that is spiking up the prices of these cards. So it's very easy to create a self-fulfilling prophecy if you yourself, cough, cough, Rudy, have the ability to throw tens of thousands of dollars at a particular spec. We've seen that happen many times with people to do so. However, a lot of these specs, at least these current ones, I think I only bought maybe 10 Rise of the Dark Realms when at the $14 when I think I got in on them. So I actually put it on the video after I bought all the cards up to 15, which wasn't very many on TCG Player. It was just a few copies of each of the Rise of the Dark Realms. And then this card did go up after the fact. So I'm thinking that I don't know if I had anything to do with this spiking or if it was just a good call because of noticing this trajectory here and the low supply. So, anyways, that's just some food for thought. I don't know what to do with my newfound power if I can have any sort of influence on the market. Hopefully I'll still stay ethical with it. Usually all the picks that I do, I'm not the Seance guy. If people know the story of the Seance guy, a person that's tried to 100% manipulate the market because he thought Seance would eventually be good enough. However, cards you want to find patterns, current patterns. I'm not the biggest speculator on what ifs. I like the known information on cards. And what we did know for Rise of the Dark Realms is it had that beautiful trajectory of increasing a couple pennies per day. And give it a year, that's a $3.65 increase for just a penny a day. And that's exactly what was happening through 2016 and 2017. There were no price spikes 2018. And then we were able to identify a complete lack of supply in early 2019, which then did cause a price spike. So that's a lot of good known information. When we start like trying to bank on what ifs, like if a card is going to be created that will break Seance, you start to run into a lot of problems. And I'm not someone that has been immune to that. I've had some good specs and some horrible specs based upon that. I think Arclight Phoenix was one of my best specs based on the what ifs, but to me that was just such a duh card. There was no way, no how that card would not be broken sometime, and it broke a lot quicker than my wildest dreams. However, these type of cards are my bread and butter. I'd rather look at cards like Rise of the Dark Realms, and we have one coming out on Thursday that is the exact same scenario as Rise of the Dark Realms. Super low supply, buy list spread that is almost non-existent, and from an older set from 5-6 years ago, and sees a steady amount of growth week after week, month after month, year after year, and that'll be the great time to get in on that is Thursday. You should be definitely looking at the card that I pick and possibly buying into them if you do believe in the past trajectory and the lack of it being reprinted. So anyway, these are the type of cards I like. So anyway, this video is getting quite long and rambly. Let's just finish this off here with the buy list cards for Card Kingdom, paying about $16.50. So a little bit over 50%. They've increased the price of $30. Market price, though, is now below the mid. I think what happened with Rise of the Dark Realms is this just people realized they had this card. They thought of this card maybe being a $10 card, also it's a $20 card. They put it up on TCG mid, and now the demand is slowly stripping this new supply that's being added in because it is now a $20 card rather than a $10 card. So it's going to take a while to kind of strip those away, but I think that we will, it'll flatline out, maybe slightly go back down to about the $20 mark, and then we'll see a continued trajectory like this. And that's what another little disclaimer I like to say about MTG Finance. MTG Finance and speculators get a bad rap because they get blamed for high prices. Well, yes, speculation does cause this little blip. However, if you take this known trajectory and just follow the timeline of where it would be in 5-6 months, in 5-6 months it would have been $20 anyway. So the other thing that speculation does is it speeds up that process temporarily. It goes from the 14 to the 20 immediately rather than having to get there naturally, which is, I mean, there's nothing non-ethical about that. It's just someone that looks for an opportunity, knows where a thing is going to eventually hit, and buys it sooner rather than later. And so, yeah, people right now don't get their $14 copies, but in six months, it's still going to be $20 anyway. It didn't cause the $20. It just sped up the process. And again, MTG Finance just gets a bad rap for people that just don't understand economics, that don't understand that you cannot effectively manipulate the market without some sort of reality behind the card. Most of the cards that do spike up in value do have homes somewhere or would have eventually got there anyway. All finance does is it actually stabilizes prices because it also causes prices from ever hitting rock bottom. For example, tomorrow or Thursday, you'll have to be looking into another card that has hit its bottom that I think is going to definitely go up in value in the next 2 years. So I am pulling the trigger. So I am causing that card from going down. It's a 25 cent uncommon right now. I'm causing that card from not going lower than 25 cents because I'm picking up all the copies that ever do go below it. So I'm actually doing a bit of good for the economy by giving a stabilization of having that card be worth something at all times rather than ever going down into bulk and then going out of obscurity. And then what happens is when people throw in bulk bin, then those cards get lost or are trashed, and then it causes a lack of supply later on when the card does spike in value to where there aren't copies. So anyway, that's my justification for MTG Finance and just economics 101. But we'll end it here. A little bit of a long, rambly video. It might be my longest video. Definitely more of like I did a shorter video for the Market Monday on the Rogue Deck Builder, which is usually a long, rambly video. And this one we did a kind of a quicker video. Hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Market. Thank you for subscribing, and I look forward to a very prosperous 2019 summer and into fall and into winter. Thanks for watching.